What's going on, you guys? I wanted to talk to you today about a couple of upgrades I think we're going to see a little more use of in Wave 7. And so I'm going to be talking to you about two in particular, and they're both related to crits. So the first one I want to talk about, and I'm going to pull up a Hammerhead Corvette as we do this, and I'm using Ryan Kingston's Fleet Builder to bring this to you today. I am going to be talking about the Damage Control Officer. Now, the Damage Control Officer is one of those that I don't think a lot of people were using for a long time. First off, it's a little bit more on the expensive side, costing 5 for an officer. That's a little bit high, so people wouldn't use it necessarily for that. Plus, it is also a little bit restrictive because you had to already have a contain token, and there were only a few. Like your first, your first wave, none of the ships even had them, so they didn't start showing up into the game until a little bit later. That being said, also there's a lot of competition for the officer slot now more than ever, so it makes it kind of tricky. And so a lot of people weren't wanting to take this because there weren't that many crits. You'd have to, usually the special critical effect stuff for the longest time was on the black dice, and you didn't want to necessarily outfit all your ships just in case somebody came in black dice range of you because they were already going to do damage anyway, being that close. But now in Wave 7, we have a lot more critical effects. We have, for example, just looking at black dice, we've already got assault proton torpedoes and assault concussion missiles. We've also added the wide area barrage for black dice. We also have new blue crits, and combining those with, the few but powerful red crits out there, there's definitely some. Well, there's I think one red crit that's out that's pretty strong with the double 2 face-up red damage. But the thing is, there's a lot more critical options now, and I think the heavy ions really is one of the best facilitators towards this because it kind of seems to work with just about everything. So I think the Damage Control Officer is going to be a really nice thing if you can use it on almost all of your big ships, or at least all of your ships that are heavily shielded. Not necessarily the best on a Hammerhead Corvette, but if you're running an MC-80, for example. Granted, you can't do this on the battle cruiser or the star cruiser because they don't have the contain, and there's currently not anything to add a contain to a ship that doesn't have it. So there's only a few ships in the Rebellion that you can even take this. Now the MC-75 is definitely the best option for this because they have double contains. So if you get shot with 2 different critical heavy ships, you're not going to have to forfeit any tokens. But it's also really good on an irregular MC-80 Home 1 style because of the fact that you've got you got so many shields and you've got double defensive defensive retrofits. You just have a lot of stuff there. So can work really good on an MC-80. Can work really, really good on an MC-75. I don't think they're necessarily great on hammerheads. I just pulled up a hammerhead to get a ship into the queue so we could talk about it. And then the other upgrade that I want to talk about is another one that's hardly ever seen because it's in a highly competitive slot, and that's a fire control team. And it's even more competitive than ever now with all the boarding teams that we have also that are using both upgrade slots. But fire control team, during the resolve damage step, you may exhaust this card to resolve 1 additional critical effect. You cannot resolve the same critical effect twice. So why is this so good? Well, let me swap out my ordnance cruiser for a different one that can actually kind of show you everything. We're going to go with the armored cruiser here. So an armored cruiser, let's get this out of the way, and let's get this out of the way. So an armored cruiser with fire control team can do some interesting things. First off, we can put a blue crit on there, and there's a couple. Right? We could put MS-1 ion cannons. This would be an interesting one. This is another one people haven't been using very much, especially now with if somebody else is using heavy ions. But let's put heavy ions on there because I think that's the most dangerous crit effect out there right now. We could do potentially heavy ions. We could do a black crit. We could do all 3 depending on what we wanted to do. So just for the sake of this video, I'm going to load up something with all 3 different types of crits. We're going to use XX9s, and we'll go with wide area barrage. Now we have 3 different types of crits. So basically what this is going to allow us to do is if we're attacking, especially if we're attacking at medium range out of our side, perhaps we can, again, we only roll 1 blue crit. that same blue crit is going to be able to work for both of these because you don't necessarily need 2 critical dice. And this one will let us, for one, we'll be able to reduce the shield and then the side shields. And that may allow the damage to get through. And then the second one, any damage that does go through, the first 2 damage are going to be dealt face up. So these two are actually going to combo well together. As a matter of fact, actually we could let me swap out wide area barrage for assault concussion missiles, because that'll combo really well with heavy ions too. So for now, maybe if we're shooting out the front, we'll have the option to be, especially if we get that, we go in real fast and get right in front of somebody, and we end up being first player. We're going to be able to drain their sides twice before the damage even goes through. So, and plus drain their front once and drain their sides twice. So you don't need XI7s if you're running something like this. And I've been saying this for a while, that heavy ions are kind of a replacement for XI7s, but that much is really nice. So Fire Control Team is just, one that wasn't used a lot before. There wasn't a whole lot of synergy. There wasn't a whole lot of times where you needed both black and red crits at the same time, but blue tends to fit with either one. So having, a really good, strong blue crit that fits with everything else is going to be really, really nice. I want to go also and look at the Empire side, because they have some interesting versions of it too. And of course, on this ship, we could also take, the counter to it, which is Damage Control Officer, and that's going to stop somebody from doing any of these. So basically, this is one new strategy, and all 4 of these on the side, and then the Damage Control Officer is kind of the counter to that strategy. You just have to be using a ship that's that's going to take it, and it also is going to give your opponent some more targets for that single accuracy that they roll. Especially if you've only got one. If you're running like a Home 1 style MC80, your opponent's like, well, do I want to target his brace? Or wait a second, do I actually want to target his contain, because he's going to shut down all these fancy crit effects? So it really helps make contain a very much more interesting, option now. So let's go ahead and look at the Empire. And we're going to put in some interesting stuff. So let's look at our ships that can take it. So Architans can definitely take the Damage Control Officer, so they're an option for that. But there's only a few more. Your ISDs can take it, although for large ships, I think you're probably better off taking something like Strategic Advisor. There's just a lot of competition for that. But the Interdictor is really the star. And Interdictor is going to be, it's kind of like my favorite way to run something like this. So we're going to put all of these upgrades here. I can't do the fire control. So I can't get the double crits with the Interdictor, so you could probably only get that with the Star Destroyer. But the Interdictor can still run some nasty stuff. So if you run I kind of want to pick up a 3rd Interdictor at this point, because I've had some success with them. A Damage Control Officer, just to make those really, really nice. And because it's an Interdictor, you can give it disposable capacitors and heavy ions. So now all of a sudden you've got, you don't need gunnery teams, because you're probably going to have 2 arcs anyway, and they're both just as good. So an Interdictor is a great defensive way to run the Damage Control Officer. But let's do an Imperial Star Destroyer. Let's go. I'm thinking actually, if we want to do this, I think this might be an opportunity to use the Imperial 2. Imperial 1 could work as well, but let's go ahead and use the Imperial 2. So here's a way that we can make this ship very, very defensive. If we go ahead and put our Damage Control Officer there, now all of our tokens are going to be useful. We can add our heavy ions as well as our XX9s, and we can go ahead and put our Fire Control Team on there. And so now we can get the double critical effect, and this opens up a serious option for choosing Advanced Gunnery as your red objective. Just because almost all the time when somebody's running an Imperial Star Destroyer that's not, a black dice one, they're almost always running gunnery teams. And so it's really hard not to run gunnery teams, because of the fact that you need to take advantage of that front arc, and the best way to do that with how wide it is and the long range that you have is to be able to shoot twice. So it's certainly a possibility. I think running this on an MC75, though, this whole setup is probably a little bit better on the Rebel side. But again, here it is, and here's the counter to it. I think Fire Control Team right now, if we were to compare Rebels versus Empire, I think the Rebels have the better option for running fire control team. But I think for damage control officer, I think the Imperials have a better version of it. I actually had a version of my Architans conga line list where every Architans had a damage control officer on them, just to potentially... So I had every single ship with damage control officer. So the idea was that if I faced anybody that wanted to run the new crits from Wave 7, it would totally shut them down. And so basically these two upgrades are what I've been talking about today. I just think there are two that have been in the game for a little while that I've really never seen anybody use, but I think they both have a place in Wave 7. And I don't think that they're so overpowered that they're going to shut down Wave 7. I think it's just something that will occasionally show up. I don't think they're going to be in every list, but I think it's something that will occasionally show up just to keep people from settling into, certain types of meta and certain builds that are must-have builds. I think it's just enough of a counter to keep a lot of variety in your games. But that's all I got for you guys for today. I just want to remind you guys there's another round of the giveaway going on right now, so there's still time to enter that. And all you need to do to win a expansion of your choice in the form of a $20 Cool Stuff gift card is to be a subscriber and leave a comment on this or one of my videos. It's as simple as that, guys. I want to thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up and make sure you click the bell for alerts so you don't miss out when I post new videos. I want to thank you guys so much for watching and have a great day.